The Department of Finance insists the Philippines does not offer natural assets as collateral in loan agreements with China. PNP Chief Oscar Albayalde defends President Duterte for asking soldiers and cops on why Eduardo Asierto is still alive. Filipino woman who sheltered American whistleblower Edward Snowden in Hong Kong granted asylum in Canada. And learn about destinations near Metro Manila that are perfect for summer getaways. Good evening. Senators say the Philippines' patrimonial assets cannot be offered as guarantee in the country's loan deals with China. Meanwhile, Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio hits back presidential spokesman Salvador Panelo after the Malacanang official said yesterday that the Reed Bank is not declared as patrimonial assets, so there are no threats it may become collateral to China. Nel Maribohok tells us why.
The provisions in the loan agreement entered into by the Philippine government with China remains controversial, particularly the issues on patrimonial property as possible collateral by the time the Philippines fails to comply with its obligations. But senators say the Philippines' patrimonial assets cannot be offered as guarantee. Senator Franklin Drilon explained that under Presidential Decree 1177, any debt of the government, domestic or foreign, will be paid through annual budget allocations.
On patrimonial property being held to pay for these debts will never happen.
This is supported by other senators including Senator Panfilo Lacson.
But to say na pwedeng i-collateralize yung patrimonial assets, mukhang may mali yata doon. Doon ako hindi mag-agree. I don't know.
On the other hand, some experts believe that based on loan with China for infrastructure projects, the Philippines offers its patrimonial properties. Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio even hits back presidential spokesman Salvador Panelo. According to Justice Carpio, under the Oil and Exploration Development Act of 1972, the Energy Department already granted a service contract to exploit gas on the Reed Bank. This law, he said, makes oil and gas patrimonial. Patrimonial assets are government properties which are not for public use, but are alienable and for disposable. A law is needed to convert a property to patrimonial assets. Constitutional law expert Professor Tony Lavinia agrees with Carpio.
Tama siya doon na we converted oil and oil, potential oil resources into patrimonial assets. You can naturalize natin siya sa ating mga commercial transactions.
Lavinia has long been studying the government's loan agreement. He said the provision on patrimonial assets as collateral is always stated in loan agreements with China.
They really want collateral. But hindi siya standard sa ibang loans ng ibang countries. Let's be clear about that. That's why in China, naka-take over ng port, naka-take over ng airport, maka-take over sila ng tinatawag na patrimonial asset.
According to reports, Sri Lanka is one of the countries that had fallen into China's debt trap, as Sri Lanka has more than $1 billion debt to China. Chinese state-owned companies took over its strategic port, the Hambantota. Djibouti in East Africa is also reportedly in danger of China's debt trap. China is also likely to take control of its ports. The Department of Finance and Malacanang are continuously in defense on these issues, refuting allegations of debt trap over the loan agreements between the Philippines and China. Nel Maribohok, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The Department of Finance clarifies that the Philippines' loan agreement with China has no provision offering natural resources as a collateral. Rosalie Cos explains why.
The Philippines' credit history shows it has never reneged from any of its obligations. This is what the Department of Finance or DOF emphasizes after several personalities and groups raised concerns that China can seize the country's natural resources or any property if the Philippine government, being the borrower in the deal, fails to pay its loan. The DOF also explains that it is highly unlikely for the Philippines not to pay the $62 million loan agreement with China on the Chico River Pump Irrigation Project. This as the loan payment is always included in the annual appropriation. In case the Philippines defaults from its loan agreement with China, the process of determining the arbitration award or the patrimonial property to be taken by China has to be done with the Philippine court.
The only way for the Chinese government to recover Philippine properties located in the Philippines is to go through Philippine courts, right? So if it cannot go through Philippine courts, then how can it or if it opts not to go through Philippine courts, then how can it get Philippine properties?
The top officials of the Duterte administration are confident that China will faithfully observe its agreement with the Philippines.
I guess we rely on the good faith of China to comply with the provisions of a loan agreement which they signed.
In fact, the Philippines is expected to have more agreements with China when President Duterte visits China again in April 2019 to attend the second Belt and Road Forum in Beijing. The DOF also explained the provisions stating waiver of sovereign immunity in the loan agreement of the Philippines is standard, but does not mean any foreigner or party can seize our natural resources.
Ibig sabihin lamang nito ay pinahihintulutan ang mga counterparty ng Pilipinas sa isang kasunduan na dalhin sa korte ang kaso kung umabot man na ang Pilipinas ay hindi makabayad sa utang nito. Ang waiver of sovereign immunity kasama ang arbitration clause ay standard o karaniwan pong isinasama sa mga kasunduang may kinalaman ang Estado.
Finance officials maintain the Philippines does not offer its natural resources as collateral in the Chico River Pump Irrigation Project deal with China.
May mga pangambang kumakalat na ang Reed Bank o Recto Bank ay maaaring angkinin ng mga ibang bansa kung sakaling ang Pilipinas ay hindi makabayad ng kanyang mga utang. Nais po namin linawin na ang ating mga loan agreements, kasama na po dito ang ating mga loan sa China, ay hindi naglalaman ng ganitong probisyon. Walang anumang collateral na nagdudulot ng pagsuko ng ating teritoryo na isinama ang gobyerno.
Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue, Malacanang.
Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara claims it's hard to determine as of now which patrimonial assets are being identified in the Chico River Pump irrigation deal between the Philippines and China. He even adds that the Philippines must assume that the Chinese Arbitration Commission will be fair in case the country defaults on its loan. Mai Bermudez tells us why.
Can the Philippines pay its financial obligations to China in the $62 million Chico River Pump Irrigation Project? Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara says that like other contracts entered into by the country, there's nothing different from such agreement compared to other deals. And in the event of default, Chinese laws will be fair.
Well, we have to assume that yung arbitration panel na yon would have to be fair. And besides, even if there's an arbitration ruling or award and it will have to be enforced in the Philippines, then an arbitral ruling will have to be validated by a Philippine court. It's not as if pag may ruling ang arbitral panel, diretso na kagad yun ang execution.
Guevara claims the project's cost is low and mechanisms are in place in case we fail to pay on time.
I think that's kind of far-fetched for two reasons. Unang-una, maliit lang yung loan eh. Kayang-kaya naman bayaran yon. Secondly, assuming for the sake of argument na baka mayroong delay or default, I'm sure that there are mechanisms in place which will take care of that situation, like probably restructuring of the loan, or maybe kung there's an arbitration clause, then we go to arbitration first.
Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio in his presentation showed that Reed Bank's natural gas is part of the country's patrimonial assets, which China can claim as collateral. But Guevara says it's hard to say whether or not this is true at this point.
May definition ang ating what is considered as patrimonial property and what properties ng state which are inalienable, no? So it's really hard for me to say at this time whether that kind of property is patrimonial in character. That may have to be also determined by the courts.
Justice Department was consulted in many infrastructure projects, such as the multi-million agreements with Japan International Cooperation Agency or JICA, and Chinese banking and financing companies which fund Build, Build, Build program. Mai Bermudez, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The Philippine National Chief defends President Duterte after the president made a speech before soldiers and policemen. Mirasol Abogadil tells us why.
Philippine National Police Chief Police Director General Oscar Albayalde defended President Rodrigo Duterte after the chief executive asked soldiers and policemen yesterday why ex-Colonel Eduardo Asierto is still alive. Asierto is the former police official who uncovered last Sunday night the alleged communication between former presidential economic advisor Michael Yang and his business partner Alan Lim on illegal drug operations in the country. In particular, is their link to the Johnson Chua drug trafficking syndicate.
Si Asierto pati si Pardo, they were the ones who killed that Korean. And ito si Asierto, ito yung broker ng AK-47, about 1,000 pieces, inimport niya at inibigay niya sa NPA. Tanungin ko kayong mga sundalo at pulis, bakit buhay pa yung mga yan? Ayaw ninyong patayin? O di sabihin ninyo.
The PNP chief said the president is furious, so he spoke such words.
Kung minsan yung galit sa isang tao, no, we do not take it as parang meron pang ibang ibig sabihin. Parang talagang kung minsan yung emotions ng isang tao kapag galit ka, talagang lumalabas. It's because, probably, galit siya, it's because he's trying, this Asierto, si ex-Colonel Asierto, is pointing directly to the president.
It can be noted that the PNP chief even offered protection to Asierto should he surface. General Albayalde also revealed he has not seen Asierto's drug matrix to date, so he cannot say if the so-called clandestine Shabu laboratory in Davao City the police had raided indeed exists. The said Shabu lab is said to link Michael Yang and Alan Lim to the Johnson Chua drug trafficking syndicate. Mirasol Abogadil, UNTV News and Rescue.
Canada has granted asylum to a Filipino woman who helped Edward Snowden hide in Hong Kong after he leaks exposed U.S. global surveillance programs. Here's Nina Armilio to tell us why.
Vanessa May Bondalian Rodel and her 7-year-old daughter Kiana arrived in Toronto on Monday on a flight from Hong Kong. Rodel, a Filipino, was among a group of people who sheltered Edward Snowden, a former Central Intelligence Agency or CIA employee and U.S. National Security Agency or NSA contractor, putting him up in her apartment in 2013 while he was in Hong Kong on the run from U.S. authorities. His leaks of highly classified documents revealed the existence of global surveillance programs run by the NSA in cooperation with Australia, Britain, and Canada.
And I wanted to help him. And for me, he's a hero. And he's not doing anything wrong. He just do the right thing.
Snowden, who now lives in Russia, was charged in June 2013 in the United States with espionage and stealing state secrets. Canada granted Rodel and her daughter asylum in January, but it was kept secret for security reasons, according to For the Refugees.
I cannot believe now I'm here in Canada, and I cannot. I feel all my worrying, all my stress is just like gone, and I feel free, and I'm so happy that now I'm here in Canada.
5 other people who helped Snowden have also requested asylum but remain in Hong Kong awaiting a response, according to the Daily National Post.
So I hoping that they also come in Canada, same like Canada, and a better life, and start a new life, same like me in Canada. So have a very big victory for us.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declined to comment on the development. Canada's Immigration Ministry also declined to comment, but said that in exceptional circumstances, requests for asylum can be accelerated. According to Radio Canada, Rodel was under pressure from Hong Kong authorities and faced a risk of deportation to the Philippines. Nina Armilio, UNTV News and Rescue.
Prosecutors have dropped all charges against U.S. actor Jussie Smollett after allegedly staging a racist and homophobic attack. The Empire Star attended a court hearing in Chicago on Tuesday where a judge sealed the case. Smollett, 36, pleaded not guilty this month to 16 counts of disorderly conduct for allegedly lying to police. The city's mayor denounced the prosecutor's decision to drop the charges as a whitewash of justice. The Philippines is known to have perfect summer destinations such as Boracay, El Nido, and the white beaches of Panglao in Bohol. But did you know that with just a few hours drive from Metro Manila, you can ease the summer heat? Find out from this report from Monokson.
Are you so busy that you have no more time for a vacation this hot season out of the city? Your leave application remains unsigned by your bosses because they'd expect you to be gone for days. No need to worry, because just a few hours away from Metro Manila, you can enjoy and have fun in nearby summer destinations. Just an hour away from Manila is the Smallville Dive Center found in Kalumpang, Bulacan. This unique venue is fit for team building activities and company outings. Even the UNTV news team did not miss the opportunity to relax even for a day. As Smallville is for all ages, there's a kiddie pool for youngsters. Sing and dance in 2 videoke rooms. And if you get tired, the air-conditioned rooms await you. But you should not miss the main attraction of the resort. This is the state-of-the-art diving facility, a 20-feet diving pool with diving equipment. Before heading to the beach, Smallville is a great venue to practice scuba diving. But if you are ready to travel longer, just 3 hours away from Metro Manila is Bataan's Gem, the Morong Star Beach Resort. It has complete amenities for total relaxation. You will not get bored because aside from swimming in the beach, kids can also try the kiddie pool, while adults can learn scuba diving in the diving pool. Don't forget to experience the banana boat ride, flying fish ride, the zip line, and kayaks for a complete fun summer experience. If adventure's what you want, you can go island hopping or swim with your family and friends at a nearby island. If you get hungry, delicious food will be served for everyone. You can also stay overnight and eat dinner around a bonfire with friends. And after a long day of activities, take a rest in one of Morong Star's fully air-conditioned rooms. So whether you're busy or do not have the luxury of time to travel and enjoy, surely the perfect hot season fun awaits you. Mon Hokson, UNTV News and Rescue.
Department of Agriculture Secretary Manny Piñol suggests more irrigation projects must be set up. Meanwhile, around 16 areas in the country are under a state of calamity as the El Niño phenomenon prevails. Ray Palayo will tell us why.
For Agriculture Secretary Manny Piñol, the government should focus on establishing more irrigation projects like solar-powered irrigation. He said irrigation projects have been neglected for a long time now. The official also reports that the Israeli government has offered 44 billion pesos worth of solar irrigation projects to the Philippines.
Kapag hindi natin ginawa yan, every time na mangyari yung El Niño, magbibilang tayo ng damage.
The DA has allotted 18.3 million pesos for the cloud seeding operations in areas in the country affected by El Nino, Secretary Piñol added. Meanwhile, the amount of damages caused by the effects of the El Nino phenomenon on the Philippine agriculture has already exceeded 2.6 billion pesos. Based on National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council or NDRRMC's record, Region 12 or Soxargen is the mostly affected region with more than 808 million pesos worth of damages. This is followed by Region 5 or Bicol with almost 794 million pesos. Hundreds of million pesos of losses has also been recorded in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARMM, in Region 8 or the islands of Samar, Leyte and Biliran, and in Mimaropa. Region 6 or Western Visayas and Calabar Zone have also suffered millions of pesos worth of agricultural damages. Most of the crops affected by drought are palay, corn, and high-value crops planted by almost 80,000 farmers. Around 16 areas including provinces, cities, and municipalities are now under the state of calamity in Mimaropa, the Zamboanga Peninsula, Soxargen, and BARMM. Ray Pilayo, UNTV, News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Transportation officials announced today that Clark International Airport is set to construct its second runway that is expected to increase the airport's capacity. Along with this is the Clark International Airport expansion project set to be operational in 2022. Joan Hano tells us why.
To accommodate more aircraft and ease air traffic problems, the Clark International Airport will construct its second runway. The president of Clark International Airport Corporation, Jaime Alberto Melo, made the announcement earlier today as they target to increase the airport's capacity.
Runway is around 2 kilometers away from the first runway. So ang partition po niyan is almost 2 kilometers. That makes it an independent, simultaneous runway. That means pwede po lumapag ang aircraft sabay na sabay, any end or maski magkabilang dulo but not on the same runway, of course.
With 2 runways, Melo assures that the incident in which a Xiamen Air skidded off on the runway of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport or NAIA with hundreds of flights cancelled will not happen in the Clark Airport. Earlier today, transport officials visited the construction site of the Clark International Airport expansion project to check its status. Under this project, the second largest international airport in the country will be expanded to 100,000 square meters. Transportation Secretary Arthur Tugade also said that Clark Airport's extension, this will help in addressing the congestion problem in NAIA since several flights will be transferred to Clark.
If you add facility to an existing facility, theoretically, you are addressing the congestion. How it will address? Of course, you are now giving the traveling public the option, NAIA or Clark. Clark becomes a very valid and viable option because in 2.5 years, you will see the train, okay? You will see the connections with SCTEX.
Once completed, it can accommodate around 80 million passengers a year, which is quite very far from the current 4 million annual passengers. Transport officials vow to finish Clark International Airport's second runway and the expansion project before the end of President Duterte's term. As of now, the project is 53% completed. Apart from this, the project is also expected to generate hundreds of jobs for the residents in Central Luzon. Johanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Clark, Pampanga.
According to a social weather station survey, most Filipino voters say no to corrupt candidates. Here's why from Grace Cassie.
Candidates for the national positions in the coming midterm polls have different gimmicks in their campaign. This week, hugpong ng pagbabago senatorial candidates campaigned in Cebu, Bacolod, and Antique, while opposition candidate Ocho Derecho separately conducted campaigns in Visayas and in Metro Manila. According to the recent survey conducted by the Social Weather Stations or SWS, 25% of 1,440 respondents in the country say they do not like candidates who will be corrupt.
Saan yung galing mga pera yan? Galing sa mahirap. Mayaman na sila,
mas sobra sila mayaman. Yung mahirap, patay na.
Ay, walang kwenta yan. Talaga, mga senador nakaupo sa gobyerno, nagkurap kasi kawawa mga mahirap.
Yung mga perang na dapat na gamitin sa tamang gamitan, mailalapat sa tamang proyekto ng bansa.
Siyempre para unlad ang ating bansa, para hindi maging uli sa iba't ibang bansa.
Dahil di ba sila ang gumagawa ng batas, dapat ang isipin nila ay hindi lang ang makabubuli sa kanila, kundi sa lahat.
Sir, hindi po dapat kurap yung mga mahahalal po dun sa senador, sir, kasi po yun yung pera ng taong bayan na dapat mapapaikot para may paangat yung Pilipinas po.
On the other hand, here's what the candidates say.
So it's very, very important talaga na yung corruption should be a non-issue, should really be a given.
Pag tanungin mo siguro halos lahat po ng Pilipino talagang makikita nila na ayaw nila na yung corrupt talaga dahil nakikita nila yung pwedeng igasto sa classroom, sa ospital, inapupunta sa bulsa ng mga corrupt na opisyal. So,
kung titignan nyo naman yung mga nagawa na namin, I think yun yung window doon sa aming gagawin.
Honesty ay important requirement para ikaw ay tumakbo sa kahit anumang posisyon.
Appreciation ng mga publiko is for non-corrupt politicians. This will validate our groundswell.
Former Senators Juan Ponce Enrile, Jinggoy Estrada, and Bong Revilla Jr., who were allegedly involved in pork barrel scam, are now running for senators.
Wala naman sa kanila ang convicted of plunder or other corruption laws. And then yan yung sinasabi ko. Dapat ang voter ang nagsasabi kung ano yung hinahanap niya sa kandidato beyond the legal requirements.
According to the SWS survey, voters are looking for candidates who have concern to the poor, good characters, trustworthiness, helpful to those in need, walks his promises, got solution to the country's problem, good leadership qualities, faith in God, and intelligence. Grace Cast in UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Australia's Michael Matthews wins Volta a Catalunya's second stage, while Belgium's Thomas de Gent extended his overall race lead. Meanwhile, world number 1 Novak Djokovic fails to advance in the Miami Masters, while both John Isner and Borna Coric reach the quarterfinals. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
In tennis, defending champion John Isner reaches the Miami Open quarterfinals with a 7-6, 7-6 win over Britain's Kyle Edmund on Tuesday's round of 16. Isner will next face Spanish 22nd seed Roberto Bautista Agut, who beat Novak Djokovic. Elsewhere, Australian Nick Kyrgios was given a point penalty for an audible obscenity during his loss to 11th-seeded Borna Coric. The obscenity by Kyrgios, who produced perhaps the shot of the tournament early in his 4-6, 6-3, 6-2 loss to Coric, was apparently directed at a spectator, and the penalty put him down a double break in the third. Up next for Coric will be a clash with Canadian Felix Auger-Aliassime, who beat Georgian 17th seed Nicolas Basilashvili 7-6, 6-4. And in cycling, Australia's Michael Matthews won the uphill sprint to the finish to take the second stage of the Volta a Catalunya on Tuesday, while Belgium's Thomas de Gent extended his overall race lead. Team Sunweb's Matthews beat Movistar's Alejandro Valverde to the line to claim the stage win, while South Africa's Daryl Impey finished in third place on the 166-kilometer route from Mataro to San Felio de Guixols. Wednesday's third stage is the 174 route between San Felio de Guixols and Valter 2000. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue.
The International Olympic Committee will need a new Japanese Olympic Committee chair. Asher Kadapan Jr. will tell us why.
Japanese Olympic Committee Chief Tsunekazu Takeda, who is under investigation in France for suspected corruption, is no longer an International Olympic Committee member, the IOC said on Tuesday. Takeda, who had been head of the JOC since 2001, said on March 19 he would step down from the JOC when his term ends on June 27th and would also resign from the IOC. The Olympic body, however, said his membership ended on Tuesday.
With this recognition by the IOC Executive Board and in accordance with the IOC regulations, the cessation of his IOC membership takes immediate effect.
French prosecutors have probed Takeda in Paris and put him under formal investigation in December for suspected corruption in Tokyo's successful bid to host the 2020 Summer Games. Takeda, speaking during a JOC Board of Directors meeting in Tokyo last week, however, maintains he is innocent.
As I have said, I don't believe I've done anything illegal. I'd like to put my efforts into proving my innocence.
Takeda, who was president of the 2020 bid committee, said he would not seek re-election after stepping down. IOC, for its part, presumes Takeda's innocence on the corruption allegations. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue.
Park rangers at the Antelope Valley in California reminds visitors anew about the rules while enjoying the super bloom. Abby Valdez will tell us why.
Thousands of visitors a day are flocking to enjoy the natural phenomenon of a super bloom of flowers at the Antelope Valley in California. But in the middle of the paradise of flowers are signs that say fragile area, stay on trail, posted everywhere at the Antelope Valley, California Poppy Reserve in Lancaster. Visitors can be seen walking off the trail and lying on the poppies. So Kevin Overduin, a state park ranger, and other officials remind those who want to enjoy the super bloom about what not to do at any of the sites of floral explosions.
The don'ts are: don't jump over the fence, don't pass any boundaries, don't hike off trail, don't go after the snakes, don't basically mess with the natural resource as far as it goes with just observing it and actually touching it. Just observe it.
Other strains of flowers include red stem fillory, slender keel fruit, goldfields, fiddleneck, cream cups, and pygmy leaf lupines. Also blossoming nearby are the Joshua trees in the nearby Ripley Desert woodland. The super bloom lasts for the next 4 weeks, so rangers emphasize the rules. A helicopter has recently parked in the reserve among the fields of blooming poppies and bushes of Lacy Facilia. Rangers continue to warn that if you harm a flower, you could be facing a $1,000 fine and a year in jail. Abby Valdez, UNTV News and Rescue.
The Metropolitan Cebu Water District has insufficient water supply to its thousands of customers. Mirasol Abogadil will tell us why.
As water level in water sources in Metro Cebu decline because of El Nino, residents located upland have been experiencing 6 to 7 hours of water service interruptions, according to Metropolitan Cebu Water District. One such water source is the Buhisan Dam that regularly produces 6,000 cubic meters a day, but now it has zero productivity. Even groundwater wells are compromised, as this will be the source of water to be rationed to their customers, according to the water district.
Yes, ang atoa noong sources, only 26% ang surface. So, muna siya ang direkta nga maapektuhan sa El Nino. The rest, doon natay 70% nga groundwater wells. So, muna siya atong gigamit karon for the rationing. Pasabot nga nag-schedule ta og agas sa different areas, especially sa affected areas ug sa ilang neighboring mga areas.
As for the Haklupan Weir Dam in Talisay City, its production has reduced by 57%. From 33 cubic meters a day, it can only produce 19,000 cubic meters now. Based on data from the Cebu Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office, 27 local government units in the province have been suffering severe damages and losses, which are estimated at 100 million pesos. Because of the effects of El Nino, over 400 hectares of rice fields, cornfields, and vegetable farms in Central Visayas have been suffering drought, according to the Department of Agriculture. DA Eastern Visayas plans to conduct cloud seeding operations to aid farmers and mitigate the effects of El Nino phenomenon. Mirasol Abogadil, UNTV, News and Rescue.
Meanwhile, Manila Water explains who will receive partial and full water bill waiver that will reflect in customers' April water bill. Mai Bermudez tells us why.
Are you one of those who have been hit by water supply shortage these past few weeks? How would you know how much your monthly bill cost this March, which will reflect next month? What if you have supply for 6, 10, or 12 hours based on Manila Water's schedule? As of now, 97% of Manila Water customers are enjoying 8 to 12 hours rotational supply per day. The remaining 3% are those located in high areas, commonly experiencing lesser than 8 hours of water supply in some parts of Rizal, small portions of Mandaluyong, Taguig, and Quezon City. Carmencita Rodriguez, who lives in a compound inside the University of the Philippines, is one of those interested to know her March water rate.
Tubig dapat talaga, huwag na nila kami singili sa tubig. Talagang ang mahal. Kasi alam niya naman po, pag hindi nakapagbayad, tapos pag babayaran, meron po siyang, di ba, meron po siyang bayaran na penalty. Mahal 500 po yun.
Same sentiments were echoed by Lisa Bragais, who complains that she has to fall in line for water ration.
Meron yung nung araw na 2 araw ba yun, nawala talaga. Ang ginagamit namin, nag-order kami ng mineral water, yun ang ginagamit kong pangluto kasi nga nagtitinda ako ng pagkain.
In Pasong Tamo, Quezon City, bombarded by the crisis, Ronald Asanyas said he wants a normal water supply instead of a lesser water fee.
Ang masasabi ko lang sa Manila Water, kailangan yung supply ng tubig, huwag naman bitinin. Ganon yun.
According to Manila Water, all of their customers will enjoy a 10 cubic meter minimum charge waiver in the East Zone.
So lahat ng customers, kahit apektado ka, hindi ka apektado, moderately affected ka, severely affected, all customers ng Manila Water will receive that waiving of the 10 cubic meters na minimum charge.
But what if you exceed from the 10 cubic meter consumption?
For example, ang bill mo, kunyari, is 260 pesos kasi you consume more than 10 cubic meters. Ileless mo yung amount na commensurate to 10 cubic meters na 139. So yung 260 less 139, then you still pay about 121 pesos.
What if you suffered a 24-hour waterless situation in the span of a week or more in your area?
There were several barangays in Mandaluyong that went waterless for more than a week, for 7 days or more. Ito, yung mga communities na totally yung March bill nila will be waived. As in zero, they have nothing to pay for the March bill. So it's a full waiver of their March bill.
For customers with water service for 6 to 12 hours, partial waiver will be applied.
You are not qualified for the waiver, yung full waiver ng March bill, pero pasok ka dun sa 10 cubic meters.
Based on their estimates, more than 4,000 households are still experiencing waterless situations for less than 8 hours. Making ways for Filipinos to get by this water crisis, Manila Water has measures in place such as installation of water tanks for severely affected areas. Mai Bermudez, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The amount of damages caused by the effects of the El Nino phenomenon on the Philippine agriculture has already exceeded 2.6 billion pesos. Based on National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council or NDRRMC's record, Region 12 or Soxargen is the most affected region with more than 808 million pesos worth of damages. This is followed by Region 5 or Bicol with almost 794 million pesos. Hundreds of millions of pesos of losses have also been recorded in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao or BARMM. In Region 8 or the islands of Samar, Leyte and Biliran and in Mimaropa. Region 6 or Western Visayas and Calabarzon have also suffered millions of pesos worth of agricultural damages. Most of the crops affected by drought are palay, corn and high-value crops planted by almost 80,000 farmers. The Department of Finance or DOF explains it is highly unlikely for the Philippines not to pay the $62 million loan agreement with China on the Chico River Pump Irrigation Project. This as the loan payment is always included in the annual appropriation, the DOF said. Several personalities and groups raised concerns that China can seize the country's natural resources or any property of the Philippine government being the borrower in the deal fails to pay its loan. But finance officials maintain the Philippines does not offer its natural resources as collateral in the Kaliwa Dam project deal with China.
May mga pangambang kumakalat na ang lead bank o recto bank ay maaaring angkinin ng mga ibang bansa kung sakaling ang Pilipinas ay hindi makabayad ng kanyang mga utang. Nais po namin linawin na ang ating mga loan agreements, kasama na po dito ang ating mga loan sa China, ay hindi naglalaman ng ganitong probisyon. Walang anumang collateral na nagdudulot ng pagsuko ng ating teritoryo.
President Rodrigo Duterte has asked the military and police why dismissed policeman Eduardo Asierto was still alive despite his involvement in corruption and kidnap for ransom activities. The president tried to discredit Asierto, who linked businessman Michael Yang to the illegal drug trade, as he urged the public not to believe the former police colonel. The president, however, defended Yang from the allegations hurled by Asierto, claiming he was a legitimate businessman. He cited that Yang's businesses have helped generate local jobs. For his part, Philippine National Police Chief General Oscar Albayalde defended the president, saying it is because the chief executive is angered, so he spoke such words.
Si Asierto pati si Pardo, they were the ones who killed that Korean. And ito si Asierto, ito yung broker ng AK-47, about 1,000 pieces, inimport niya at inibigay niya sa NPA. Tanungin ko kayong mga sundalo at pulis, bakit buhay pa yung mga yan? Ayaw ninyong patayin? O di sabihin ninyo.
Kung minsan yung galit sa isang tao, no, we do not take it as parang meron pang ibang ibig sabihin. Parang talagang kung minsan yung emotions ng isang tao kapag galit ka, talagang lumalabas. It's because, probably, galit siya, it's because he's trying, this Asierto, si ex-Colonel Asierto, is pointing directly to the President.
And for the news abroad, here's Stephanie C. live from Hong Kong. Good evening, Stephanie.
Good evening, William. The leader of 10 intruders who raided North Korea's embassy in Madrid last month contacted the FBI days later, a Spanish High Court judge says. Adrienne Hong Chang, a Mexican citizen who lives in the U.S., contacted the U.S. agency after fleeing to the U.S. via Lisbon, Judge Jose de la Mata said. According to the judge's edict, lifting the shroud of secrecy over the incident, Hong Chang contacted the FBI in New York 5 days after the assault to give them his version of what happened there. He is also said to have handed over audio-visual material. The U.S. government said they had nothing to do with the raid last month.
The United States would always call for the protection of embassies belonging to any diplomatic mission throughout the world. That's something that we are obligated by, both by international treaty and by standard practice throughout the world. So that goes without saying.
Can you say that the United States government, at least, had nothing to do with this?
The United States government had nothing to do with this.
Thank you.
All right.
The break-in on this 22nd of February occurred just days before a key summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Hanoi, Vietnam. Mozambique faces cholera outbreak after a cyclone wreaks havoc to the southern African nation. Jovic Burmas will tell us why.
Large crowds of people waited for treatment at medical centers in the central districts of the Mozambique city of Beira as government made preparations for a cholera outbreak that it says is inevitable amid the devastation left by Cyclone Idai. Nurses wearing face masks distributed chlorinated concentrate, which will act as a temporary solution to prevent waterborne diseases among the local population after the mass flooding. Gert Verdonk, an emergency coordinator with the aid group Doctors Without Borders, said an epidemic could spread quickly due to Beira's dense population.
As long as food supply is not restored, as long as water supply is not restored, as long as there is no chlorination of the water, and people at the moment are in dire needs. We have seen people drinking water from the streets that was still standing there. This will go very quickly.
Water has been slowly receding and there was no rain in Beira on Monday, and some roads have become passable, but the size of the disaster zone means getting aid to the most needy is still difficult. Idai lashed Beira with winds of up to 170 km per hour on March 14, then tore inland through Zimbabwe and Malawi, flattening buildings and killing at least 686 people across the three countries. The death toll in Mozambique could rise steeply as receding floodwaters allow rescuers to access remote areas or if waterborne diseases like cholera gain a foothold. Cholera is spread by feces in sewage-contaminated water or food, and outbreaks can develop quickly in a humanitarian crisis where sanitation systems are disrupted. It can kill within hours if left untreated. The Secretary General of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies said after a visit to Mozambique that the situation there was a ticking bomb as regards waterborne diseases.
Transit and shelter facilities are not good, to be very honest. Some of them are even horrendous. The one I visited, one of them I visited was in a school, 3,000 people in a school of 15 classrooms. And the school itself is half flooded, and there are only 6 toilets, for all those people. So it's not an exaggeration when I say that we're really sitting here on a water sanitation and hygiene ticking bomb, because there could be, some high risk of waterborne diseases, like we know them most of the time in these kind of disasters.
Jovic Burma, UNTV News and Rescue.
Aircraft maker Boeing Company and the Federal Aviation Safety Regulators will try to rebuild trust to their customers following 2 deadly crashes of Boeing 737 MAX airliners. Sonny Cause explains why.
The U.S. aviation regulator will significantly change its oversight approach to air safety by July following the 2 fatal Boeing Corporation MAX 737 passenger plane crashes, according to written congressional testimony. At a U.S. Senate Commerce Subcommittee hearing on Thursday Philippine time, the Federal Aviation Administration or FAA acting head Dan Elwell will say the agency's oversight approach must evolve after the deadly crashes, according to the testimony. While specific details on oversight changes were not clear, lawmakers are expected to question Elwell on how the regulator intends to change the process by which a manufacturer such as Boeing can to a large extent certify their own planes and flight software systems. Anti-stall software on the Boeing 737 MAX plane is among the leading areas of focus for investigations into the 2 crashes.
It's not enough to get the software certified. I want to know that the training on the new software, on the fix, and how it impacts the entire system of the aircraft is going to be conducted. I want to know that it's going to be more than, as one pilot described it, a 1-hour session on an iPad to get his training.
The aviation industry has been thrown into a flux by a Lion Air crash in Indonesia last October that killed 189 people and an Ethiopian airline disaster on March 10 that killed 157, both involving Boeing 737 MAX single-aisle planes. A spokesman for Ethiopia's Transport Ministry, which is leading an investigation in Addis Ababa, said the preliminary crash report would very likely be released this week. Boeing's fastest-selling 737 MAX jet, with orders worth more than $500 billion at least prices, has been grounded globally by the FAA, although airlines are still allowed to fly them without passengers to move planes to other airports. One such passenger-less Southwest Airlines Corporation Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft landed safely on Tuesday after declaring an emergency over an engine-related problem, leaving Orlando, Florida, the FAA said. The issue was not related to a computer system on the 737 MAX, Southwest said. Sonica's UNTV News and Rescue, USA.
And those are the news from the other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Stephanie C., reporting live from Hong Kong. What should have been a giant leap for womankind has turned into a stumble on the path to equality after U.S. space agency NASA canceled the first all-female spacewalk. Here's Kath Dumaraos to tell us why.
Anne McClain and Christina Kaw had been due to step into history books in a spacewalk on Friday during the final week of Women's History Month. But McClain will now give up her place in the mission to her male colleague Nick Hague due to a lack of a spacesuit in the right size, NASA announced late Monday. NASA spokeswoman Stephanie Shearhall said McClain thought a large-size suit would be fine, but after a spacewalk last week, found that the medium-sized was a better fit and would be the most appropriate suit to wear to venture back outside the International Space Station. The NASA announcement was met with disappointment and anger by many following the much-anticipated mission on social media, with some arguing an all-female spacewalk was overdue. A senior editor at the U.S. nonprofit The Planetary Society, Emily Lakdawala, said they were sad that a milestone moment on women's space exploration had been deferred, but safety came first. Nearly 60 years after the first human blasted off into space, less than 11% of the 500-plus people who have traveled to space have been women, and spacewalk teams have either been all-male or male-female. McClain and Kaw were both part of the 2013 NASA class that was 50% women. Kat Dumaraos, UNTV News and Rescue.
An Ivorian artist puts finishing touches on his latest masterpiece using two unusual ingredients. Nina Armilio will tell us why.
Ulrich Abe has unique artistry. He fuses paint with coffee and cocoa powder. Abe found out about this art technique when an art teacher told his students to discover more by themselves by mixing other elements in their artwork aside from paint. To his surprise, he discovered that paint could be mixed with cocoa and coffee to create a marvelous piece of art. Abe shared he grew up in an environment where his family drank a lot of coffee, which brought all of them together, and those are the memories that inspire him in his artwork. The coffee artist, who plans to hold his first exhibition in September this year, also explores different themes through his art, such as cultural identity and migration. The Ivory Coast native said he wants to pay tribute to farmers and to all the unseen people who work hard for coffee and cocoa, which for him are his country's most valuable commodities at the core of Ivory Coast's economy. Coffee is the second largest export commodity of the country. It was the largest coffee producer in Africa in the 1970s and 1980s. Nina Armilio, UNTV, News and Rescue.
And those are the reasons behind the news this March 27, 2019. On behalf of Rina Villamor Camara and Angelo Castro III, I am William Theo, and before we close, we will recap with today's significant soundbites. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.
the only way for the Chinese government to recover Philippine properties located in the Philippines is to go through Philippine courts, right? So if it cannot go through Philippine courts, then how can it or if it opts not to go through Philippine courts, then how can it get Philippine properties?
Si Acerto pati si Pardo, they were the ones who killed that Korean. And ito si Acerto, ito yung broker ng AK-47, about 1,000 pieces, inimport niya at inibigay niya sa NPA. Tanungin ko kayong mga sundalo at pulis, bakit buhay pa yung mga yan? Ayaw na ninyong patayin? O di sabihin eh.
Kung minsan yung galit sa isang tao, no, we do not take it as parang meron pang ibang ibig sabihin. Parang talagang kung minsan yung emotions ng isang tao kapag galit ka, talagang lumalabas. It's because probably galit siya, it's because he's trying, this Acerto, si ex-Colonel Acerto, is pointing directly to the President.
So I hoping that they also come in Canada, same like Canada, and a better life. Start a new life, same like me in Canada. So have a very, very big victory for us.
Way is around 2 kilometers away from the first runway. So ang partition po niyan is almost 2 kilometers. That makes it an independent, simultaneous runway. That means pwede po lumapag ang aircraft sabay na sabay, any end or maski magkabilang dulo, but not on the same runway, of course.
So it's not an exaggeration when I say that we're really sitting here on a water sanitation hygiene ticking bomb, because there could be some high risk of waterborne diseases, like we know them most of the time in these kind of disasters.